West Coast Coast is 4 hours.
Did you find it? Did you find it?
Nope.
I bring that up at the next. Okay.
Can you go look at your sentence?
Uh-oh.
Even though.
Court comes to order.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 20th Atlanta Planning Advisory Board General Meeting. I'm Debbie Skopczynski, Vice President of APAB. Our president is on the West Coast enjoying her family this evening, so you get paid. The first order of business today is the adoption of the agenda. First, let me ask, are there any corrections or adjustments you need to make? If not, is there a motion to
I'll
adopt?
make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made, properly seconded. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda? No.
I did
Yes.
have one question. R23-007. Are we gonna be voting on that single time on that?
Guy, are we going to be voting? Is this ready?
Bigger. This meeting. But for some reason it wasn't back, so that was an error.
I'm sorry,
it's the-
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so the committee voted to motion it to this meeting. It's the exact same document that Randy Gibbs gave us all last month, the draft position paper. I just changed the date on it, but it's not in here. And I brought the wrong one. I was going to pass it around just in case. And I brought the other one that he gave us, the one that we didn't talk about. So we're supposed to vote on it today. Technically, everyone has this document, but it's not in its packet. So.
Is it possible to get the document?
Absolutely. Can it be emailed to us?
Yeah, I have a slightly messed up quality scan of it, but it should work.
Is it time sensitive?
Yeah, it's been on our docket for a year, so I would say yes, but we were trying to just get out.
I'm trying to get it off the table. Okay, does that answer your question?
No.
If you get the document, we will vote on it today.
You put the email address.
Okay. So motion was made, properly seconded to adopt the agenda. If there are no objections, the agenda is adopted. The other housekeeping thing we need to do is approve the voting report from last month. It is in your materials. Take a quick look at it. And then I'll entertain a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this, who fills this out? We do. Can I ask a favor?
Absolutely.
I mean, I was here last month, and some of these, they didn't ring a bell. For posterity's sake, it might be good, it says, to refer the matter, maybe just a little more detail.
Where are you?
Okay, so let's look at the MARTA one. To refer an issue with MARTA.
Related to the 5-point station.
Yeah.
Quality.
Okay, so, I don't know, what was the issue? And maybe it wasn't even clear when we were talking
It
about it.
wasn't.
Was the issue
It
the
was.
change in construction, keeping it open, stopping? Yeah, so maybe there wasn't clarity at the meeting. Some of these, I looked at them, I'm like, I know we talked about it, but I don't really know. I was there, and then like a year from now, we're not gonna know what some of these are. So just if we can maybe add more detail, sometimes that would be my gentle question.
And we'll reference the document that's in our
Will do, and I'll make a note to ask those that are making motions to state the motion as clearly as possible, clearly and as succinctly as possible, so that the minutes report, the voting report will reflect that.
I was asking a lot of them.
I believe in y'all, you can do it.
Are there any changes or corrections to the voting report? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adopt meeting report.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Lauren. Are there any objections to approving the voting reports to the June meeting? If not, the voting report's been approved. Is there anyone here for public comment? There's a change. Okay, we have several presentations today. The first one is a solid waste rate adjustment presentation by Kanika Greenlee. If you want to go to the front of the room, let's go to the able to see you.
So good morning, everyone. Good to see so many familiar faces in the room. I'm Kanika Greenlee. I serve as the interim deputy commissioner for the Department of Public Works. Many of you may know me from my previous role as the executive director of Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission, which I'll touch on that at the end of this presentation about the solid waste rates. But joining me in the room, I have Deputy Commissioner Melissa Davis and Director Sharon Royston joining me. So we're here just to talk about the proposed solid waste rates adjustment. It should have been on your NPU agendas in June. And you should have received, all NPU chairs should have received this one-page fact sheet that I'm passing out as well about the solid waste rate adjustments. It will go before full council for a vote on August 5th. And so I just want us to walk through the document, see if you all had any questions or concerns. But the rate adjustment is proposed to go for the next 3 fiscal years. So for the first fiscal year, which would be fiscal year 2025, which started on July 1st, it would be a 3.5% increase, and the subsequent years would be 2%. And we believe that this is a conservative approach and is based on a consumer price index. We are continuing to explore operational efficiencies with our solid waste department, but we also are seeing increased costs due to inflation. Those increased costs include disposal for our solid waste. Your trash has gone up considerably year over year. So we have some operational costs, some environmental regulations. We have a capital program to purchase new equipment and vehicles, infrastructure improvements, and market conditions. But at that bottom chart, that blue bottom chart, and I know it's a little small, so I'll just go over that briefly. So in fiscal year 25, I'll start with where we are right now for the current year. Your solid waste rate is on average 409.45. The increase for FY 25 would be 423.78. Then in 2026, it would be 432.26. And in 2027, it would be 440.90. Bulk waste will continue to remain flat. You still get 12 included in your solid waste rates. And then the recycling costs, as you can see, currently they're at $120.18 per year. In 2025, it would increase to $124.39. In 2026, $126.87. And in 2027, $129.41. I'm going to pause and ask for questions, comments, concerns. Yes, ma'am. It's time.
So we appreciate you giving us heads up on the increase, but as far as service, I know you're gonna improve on some areas, but a lot of the challenges we have in our neighborhood is when they come through, they just throw the buggy, and when they pick up the bulk and recycling, they'll just leave some stuff, and then to me, they don't do the best job, but is there any way that you can like supervise that, have somebody come through? Because I've made complaints and you guys come through, but it's just like, if they would understand that part of picking up the bulk is just cleaning up the little area too, unless it's the owner's responsibility, I'm not sure.
No, they should be. So as you all know, we had some struggles during COVID with just stabilizing and making sure we were providing on-time and service delivery. Now we're focusing with our frontline teams on customer service, and we consider that customer service to make sure that we're putting your cart back, not blocking your driveway, not leaving the debris in the road. So we are doing some customer service training with our teams on that regard. But I'll make sure I bring that back to the frontline supervisors. Mr. Gunn.
With the increasing rates for the job, has there also been an increase in rates for the workers as well?
Yes, I'll let DC Davis speak to that specifically.
Madam Chair, would you repeat the question?
They asked whether an increase in wage rates for the workers as well.
Oh, okay. Good morning, Melissa Davis, Interim Deputy Commissioner. There has been an increase for for our team members. The mayor has been very supportive of the City of Atlanta employees. So over the last 2 years, we've seen a 3.5% increase in the first year, actually a total of 7%, 3.5% in 2022 and 3.5% in 2023. And then internally with the Department of Public Works, we also, for our frontline heroes, our frontline team members, we established a 7.5% increase for those who are working on the front line.
Got a two-part
Wait,
question.
one second, Mr. Hunter will say.
So my question is more so piggybacking on what Ms. Steins said. I've used the bulk pickup service, and I would say that I live in Southwest Atlanta. We don't have sidewalks in our neighborhoods, so we put the bulk pickup on our lawns. When they use the grab around to protect termites, it damages them.
Okay.
Like my grass still hasn't grown back in that spot where I put. And also there's always debris left behind. We get the arm truck sometimes for recycling, sometimes we don't. But when you use it, it does not close the lid back. So it's just a way you need to put it on the curb so that it will work. There's never been an education campaign in terms of it doesn't need to face, with the having to face towards the house or towards the street so that it will close. And I've scoured your website and there's no information on that. I think that would be helpful. I think that's part of what it is. And then the last thing is that it's just the quality of service we receive. I know often in our neighborhood, trash is really lining the streets behind the truck. And quite a few times, our MPD chairs in our neighborhood right now, we've had to call them back several times to come and pick up the trash. My neighbors are living in the street, picking up not just 1 or 2 people, like really trash going all the way up the street. And so there is, I understand why this needs to be done, but I guess my thing is that we need the quality of service to also meet the level of increase.
Heard on the quality of service, and again, I will take that back, these comments back to our supervisor and our leadership team on the solid waste collections and bulky waste collections. To answer your question about cart placement, we will be rolling out some education campaign as we are getting more automated trucks in our fleet. They're called automated side loaders. You may or may not have them in your neighborhood currently, but it's where the one arm picks up your truck, but the handle should be facing towards your home. And so there's a little bar in front of it, so that's what it grabs the bar to lift it. And so in terms of your first question about the grapple trucks that pick up your bulky waste, that is the equipment that we have, and I do know that it can cause, it's challenging in some parts of the city, is what I'll say, and we realize that, but we're looking at modifying some of that type of equipment so we can get smaller grapples so it doesn't do so much damage, because not everyone does have sidewalks that line their home. So I'll take those comments back to the city. We'll be looking at, Melissa is over fleet, so we'll take those back to our fleet team as well. Okay.
Yeah. My question is to follow up on Mr. Thurman. I definitely applaud the wage increases over the past few years. How much of these of this increase is going to be factored into wage increases in the future? And if possible, do you know the breakdown between your hourly wage workers increase and your salary worker increase?
So in terms of the rate increase, and thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that question. So in terms of the rate increase, We factored in a conservative 3%. We do have a comp study that's that's in progress right now. But for the purposes of this exercise and this study, we are very conservative in our approach. Also keep in mind that we did, again, implement a 7% increase, and then the mayor as well implemented a 7% increase. So over the last 2 or 3 years, our team members have received about 14%. So we're really proud of that. So in terms of the breakdown, I don't have that specific information for you in terms of the administrative team members versus the laborers. So I can get that information back for you.
And as a quick follow-up to that, as I'm trying to understand, are you guys committing to an annual 3% wage increase from here on out?
No, sir, there's no commitment for that. What we are saying is that we work really diligently to ensure that we did implement the 7%. And of course, again, the mayor was very supportive of the city as a whole. But there are a lot of competing programs and projects and things that have to get done in terms of providing services. But we are committed to evaluating on a regular basis. So typically we look at our rates on a 2-year basis. And in this particular, our rate study, we looked at it, and from a conservative approach, again, we were considering about 3%. But the city has undertaken a large comp and pay study. And so right now we're waiting to hear back what the results from those are. And that was led by the Department of Human Resources. So everyone is waiting on information. Once we have that, that will be taken into consideration. But the budget for fiscal year 25 has already been adopted. And these rates, if when considered by council, if adopted, will go into effect after the consideration date is August 5th. And adoption, if considered by council and adopted, will be in September. So, but once the paid class study is reviewed, released, and approved, then that will affect all the employees across the city of Atlanta.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm wondering what fraction of the material that's put out in blue bins actually ends up being recycled?
I would say all of it ends up being recycled. We do have some residual and some contamination. So our contamination rate in the city hovers between anywhere between 20 and 30%, but all that is not contaminated is being recycled. Our recycling processor is Pratt Recycling. And so we have a transfer station off of Fulton Industrial. And so they process the glass there, and the glass goes to Strategic Materials in College Park. So that glass is used mainly for building materials, so like fiberglass installation.
The glass is now being recycled?
Yes, yes. All of your glass that goes in your blue recycling cart is being recycled, and that's being made into primarily building materials such as fiberglass. And then all of the rest of the commodities in your cart, the paper, Pratt is a closed loop facility. Their full facility is in Conyers, so that's then taken to Conyers. And within you putting something in your cart curbside, particularly your paper or your cardboard, within 30 days or less, it's made into a pizza box or Amazon shipping box. So it's a completely closed loop facility. You're helping, the circular economy when you do recycle. And then the aluminum goes to Novellis and Greensboro, Georgia, and so on and so on. But it is all being recycled.
Last 3 questions.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
NPUC has discussed this ordinance at its last 2 meetings, because I wanted to make sure that they specifically understood what those changes were going to be. Sometimes when you're doing the fact sheets and stuff like that, they'll glance over them, but they really don't understand. And once that first bill comes out, then they start calling me. So I wanted to make sure that they thoroughly understood. And there was a question that I could not answer regarding the residential backyard removal service fee. One of the gentlemen who is handicapped said, Ms. Phillips, I have a question about this because most of the people in my neighborhood that have to use the residential backyard pickup are senior citizens. And this equates to more than right about $100 a month that they're asking us to pay for the backyard pickup. And that's exceptionally more than what people are paying for a whole year. And he wanted to know if there was some kind of offsetting features or factors, you know, like with Georgia Power, the rest, you can fill out an application and you get a reduction. And I did not know, so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. And there is a discount for members who are senior citizens with disabilities. And so we can certainly send that information out to all of the entities to make sure that everyone has that. So all of our senior citizens, particularly who are, have disabilities in particular, they meet that certain criteria, and there is a discount for that backward service. Thank you.
Ms. Carmen,
Sorry.
I just want to begin by asking a favor. If you could please pass our thanks to your frontline employees, our sanitation engineers on the street. I feel like that is a thankless, dirty job that is not glamorous. And without them, our city would literally come to a grinding halt without having those people to be able to remove the trash collection. So please send our thank you.
I will. Thank you.
For their work.
Thank you so much.
When was the last time that we had a rate increase for index?
2022.
2022.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then just my one comment is to say that just ensure that as you continue through your processes, to be cognizant that a rate increase and increase in overall funding is not a license to stop finding efficiencies. You have to continue to work at finding new ways to squeeze the lemon and reduce cost out of the organization and out of the services. But thank you. I'm glad to see what y'all are doing.
Just to piggyback on that question and comment, thank you for that. We have digitized all of our routes, so all of our trucks now have tech in them, so they have an iPad in them, and all the routes are digitized. And we have service confirmation. We have cameras on the truck, so we know what time we've been down your street. So if you said, you know, you missed me, we know we were down your street at 9:32 a.m. and you may have set your card out at 9:45 a.m. We have all that digital information now. So we are continuing to advance our technology in our fleet and in our trucks. I'll let the chair take the side on the last questions.
Yes. I just had a question about street sweeping. Will that continue? And the frequency of it?
So yes, so these rates are specific to our solid waste enterprise fund. So those are services that you receive at your curb. Street sweeping falls under the general fund, but yes, those services will continue. And it depends on your specific area where we do street sweeping, but typically in residential areas, we do street sweeping once a quarter.
Gloria, last question.
Yeah, thank you. Interim Director Greenlee belongs to MPY, and I can tell you as a prior road, yes, we are able to get all that we need for group trash pickups. But I really want to put this out to us as leaders, that a lot of folks really are not cognizant with the bulk pickup, that grapple has to negotiate trees and
Power
lines, and that they need to be cognizant of where that bulk is placed. That's one of many things that I think we as constituents should, if we're, in community groups, make sure our constituents understand there's a lot of obstacles just through ignorance that we as citizens are unaware of that diminishes their time and their ability to serve us. But specifically, bulk pickup is one that I noticed.
All right, Chair, can I make one quick announcement about Keep Atlanta Beautiful? So Keep Atlanta Beautiful, we support community cleanups throughout the city. So on any given Saturday, there's 5 to 10 neighborhood cleanups going on. We provide trash bags, litter grabbers, gloves, and then we will assume responsibility to pick up those bags as long as you have a minimum of 3 bags after your cleanup. So if you're interested in doing a community cleanup, or if you have a community cleanup in your neighborhood that needs supporting, you can email us at kabc@atlantagA.gov. Again, that's kabc@atlantagA.gov. In addition to that, we have an Adopt a Spot program. So if you're doing a community cleanup on a regular basis, you will get recognition for that through our Adopt a Spot program. And you can also find that on the DPW website. And lastly, this body has a representative on the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission board, and it's time for us to have a new member from APAB on the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission board. So we hope that you all will take that into consideration.
Thank you, all three of you.
Is your email okay in Greenlee still?
Yes.
Hard.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Barnett, I want to let you know that we actually refer to our team members as frontline heroes.
I love that.
So
That's
we
awesome.
represent them as the engineers, but they are our frontline heroes, and so we are very, very supportive of them. We are thankful for all the hard work they do every single day.
Absolutely. I love that. That's exactly what they are. They are heroes.
Thank you all. Thanks for spending much of your Saturday.
Now.
Okay, folks,
Careful.
I have a gavel and I will use it.
Throw it.
All right, next up on the agenda is Councilmember Alex Swan, who's here to talk about the finance.
Hey, everybody. It's good to see y'all. I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. It's good to be with y'all. And first of all, I want to thank you for your service. It's a lot for the city to ask of you to give up a Saturday morning, not including all the work you're doing out in the community. But I want to thank you and happy anniversary. If I start sweating, just understand, I ran the Beltline West Side 8K this morning, so I'm still not completely cooled off. So if I start sweating, I'll be okay. I've got my water up here. I know that the public works folks cringed when they saw me walk in because I have some very strong feelings about the solid waste fee. I'm going to diverge for a second and talk about budget. I'm glad y'all are paying attention. I'm glad y'all are asking a lot of questions. I did also at the last city utilities, had kind of a back and forth go with the interim commissioner. I've got my concerns about the rates. I agree if we're going to do it, we need to be very transparent about it. The 3.5 increase, someone asked about salaries and frontline. I mean, as y'all know, we've got about 20% vacancy in this part, or across all departments in the city. Cost and compensation study that's going to be coming back in this fall, I suspect is going to call for a lot more significant salary increases than 3.5%. And so I asked the commissioner, I'm like, have we factored that in? He said, no, because we don't have those numbers yet. I'm like, why don't we wait 3 months? Let's see, and let's just fill it all in. If we're going to rip the Band-Aid off, I'd rather not increase and then come back 3 months later and realize, oh, we should have raised it more. So I'm going to push on that. The other thing that I was bothered about is that there's potentially $5.5 million in projected savings, that operational savings. So the efficiencies they talk about, 100% agree with, except for one. 2.7 million of that is to go for your trash pickup, your yard clippings to go from weekly to bi-weekly. And I remember after pandemic, when we did that in the city, everybody blew up. And I think we got to take a quick look at that. So I would take that back to your folks, really dive into that. If you've got thoughts on that, please let your council member know, because we're going to vote on it August 5th at our full council meeting. Okay. I know they're sitting back there going, no, he's don't say all that. Just my 2 cents. And I may be the only one that votes against it, but I'm okay with that. Okay. I've been here, asked to come talk to y'all about 2 topics, and then I think there'll be more. The budget process and how the NCUs and how APAB and citizens and stakeholders can get more involved with that. Also, I wanted to talk about the neighborhood ombudsman office and the mayor's office and a lot of confusion that's going around with that. One concerns that I raised at the budget hearing in the executive offices presented. I'll tell you what they told me afterwards, and I'll tell you whether I'm satisfied with that answer or not. You can probably tell from my face that I still have questions. Okay, budget process. As you know, by law, by code, City Council every year has to pass a balanced budget no later than June 30th. Our fiscal year starts on July 1. And so you've probably seen or heard where City Council the month of May and kind of the first week in June, we are heavy into department budget hearings where each department commissioner or lead comes to us and presents and justifies the budget request that they have for that year, be it an increase, a decrease, additional resources. They are expected to explain everything. But I want to roll back a little bit because the budget process in the city actually starts in February. I mean, if you've ever gone through a budgeting process, either with a nonprofit or with a business, you understand that it takes a lot of work before that actual document lands on your desk in terms of full review. In February, the finance department kind of rounds everybody up in the departments, and they kind of start getting a feel for what the asks are going to be, what the needs are. They look at the current year's operating history and record to see, based on what we allocated for them in the current fiscal year, whether they're running above that or below that. They look at staffing levels, they look at specific initiatives or market, I don't want to say market conditions, but things that phenomenon that may be happening or changes in operations that we need to factor in for the next fiscal year. They start with just looking at all of our revenue sources. Things like property tax, they look at the property tax digest and the projected increases in that. They look at sales tax trends. I mean, we get that data from the state all the time because they're collecting monthly. We look at things like business license trends, alcohol licenses, and other franchise fees. And that's how finance starts. They kind of have this numbers like, okay, if we project all that out based on economic trends, we're going to get $100. And then they go to the departments and they start thinking about asking, okay, well, what new things do you want? Fire this year, for example, we knew we needed to allocate more money for equipment because we didn't have the sufficient number of ladder trucks and other rafts and things like the fire department needed. So there will be incremental pieces of that that they'll have to factor in as well. All the while, council is also setting forth our budget priorities. So right around the same time, we passed a resolution that that sounds like a Geiger counter, like I'm radioactive or something. So at the same time, council will put forward, each one of the committees generally will put forward its budget priorities. For example, we might say we want more code enforcement officers, or we want more funding to go to Atlanta at the police department's license and permits division to help with applications and inspections or kind of compliance issues. So all that kind of goes into finance's black box, and then towards the end of April, the budget book lands on our desk. So at that point, the mayor and the administration have kind of decided this is what we project revenues to be, and based on that, this is what we're proposing for the budget for the next year. We start our hearings, and we generally pass the budget within the first couple of weeks of June. That's a very broad stroke of the process, but I want to lean in specifically into how council at least receives feedback from the community in terms of what y'all want and challenges that you see in what's being proposed, or more importantly, kind of what operational impact y'all have felt over the last, during that part of the fiscal year that are causing problems. So, for example, we will hear from y'all that, wait a minute, my neighborhood park, the grass is growing, they're only cutting it every 2 weeks, and the grass needs to be cut every week. And so, or we'll hear challenges around, someone said street sweeping, that once a week or once a quarter is not often enough. We'll hear issues about public safety, that we'd like to see more foot patrols on the belt line or in our parks. So we'd like to see more traffic police kind of just being available rather than just driving in the beats. There are many ways that we receive that. Number one is, a lot of times at MPU meetings, we'll sit and I will listen to, okay, am I starting to feel some trends in terms of service delivery levels that are sagging? Again, in those different areas, and then just think through my mind, okay, how do I translate into an operational amendment to address that? Is it more people? Is it more equipment? Is it giving money to a nonprofit that addresses homelessness specifically? The other piece that we do is at the budget, the department hearings, while we don't let the public speak, we do encourage folks to come, because then you can hear the department head actually talk through, I'm going to add 3 more crews here to address this issue, and that's why my salary budget has gone up. Or I'm allocating this for playground equipment for this year. So then y'all can get a better idea and then come back and say, wait a minute, council members, that's not enough. Or I think that's a misplaced priority or investment. This is a little hint, at those department meetings, budget hearings, the Parks Advocacy Group is a great example. They show up, they know they can't speak, but they sit in the audience and they wear green t-shirts that say, I love parks. So all of a sudden council members can visually go, okay, this is something that is important to folks. So That is one way of participating in the department budget hearings without having to say anything, but we'll know you're there. It's a great segue into the other way that I would encourage y'all to get involved is work with your advocacy groups because they are singularly and specifically focused on specific issues. Park Pride is a great example. They come and advocate for more money for parks. Propel Atlanta, ATL, sorry, is another great example for cyclists and pedestrian safety. And so they will dive into the Department of Transportation budget and then come back with questions and recommendations. And then we do have some public hearings on the budget. They are held here at City Hall. There's usually one in one afternoon and then one in one evening that you can follow online. There's one that we specifically open to social media input. So if you follow the meeting on, say, Facebook or Twitter, or if you can submit your questions live as we go, and the finance chair, Howard Bashir, gets them all at the end of that presentation, reads them out, and then the department heads come up and answer the questions. So I don't know if all of y'all know that or not, but it's a really good way that you can actually just watch the hearings from the comfort of your home and still participate in it, and know that all the questions do get cycled through. And then finally, definitely contact your council member, particularly if there is a neighborhood-specific issue that you want to see more investment in. I hear from my folks, Debbie will acknowledge, I mean, I hear a lot about public safety, I hear a lot about green space investment, and I hear a lot about code enforcement. So the signals I get from my MPU, I know I work to translate that into what additional investments do we need to make on the budget. And so while the mayor plops that giant book on our desks at the mid to late April, we do have about 6 weeks where we can propose amendments to. It's kind of hard. Usually by the time that stake is put in the ground, it's hard. It's a lot easier to change it when the budget is being formulated than it is after the fact, but it's still not, it's still doable. So council members, particularly members of Finance Committee, are in constant contact with administration staff, and we're asking for things. This year, I asked for a donation to a nonprofit in my community and was able to get it. And so that process happens behind the scenes, and then at the very last Finance Committee meeting, we bring all those forward, we vote on it, and then hopefully it moves through City Council. A couple things in terms of advice. I would say be specific about what you ask for. Don't just go, we need to improve public safety. I agree, but what does that mean? Does that mean you want more police officers? What is the specific problem? Is it in your parks? Is it in your streets? Or are there problematic businesses that may be an alcohol license issue? Or is it code enforcement type things? But be as specific as you can because that helps us. And that also prevents me from or someone on your council member from mistranslating what your intent was into how we interpreted it. And then all of a sudden we go, you see the budget and you see what we did and you're like, that's not what I wanted. So just think through that. I mean, you are in the community, you know exactly what the impacts are. So that's one suggestion. Second one is volume matters. If we get one email, okay, that's nice. I appreciate the impact. But if we get 10, we get 15, or maybe even 25, 50, then we sit up and listen. So that's why I say go through your advocacy groups because they know how to do this masterfully. Where you go to change.org and all of a sudden we get hundreds and hundreds of emails, but it gets our attention. So I'll just be very honest with you. If you do that and we hear a constant theme, that's important. And it doesn't have to necessarily even be that. It could be that all of the MPUs all of a sudden are saying the same thing. So maybe y'all are in here and you're deciding this is going to be our #1 budget issue. And then you go back to your MPUs, or you as each one of your MPU chairs writes us. That matters. I mean, again, the consistency and frequency that we hear about an issue elevates it in our priority list. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm going way over my time on that, but last thing I'll say is pick your council advocate too. I mean, it may not necessarily be the council member who represents your MPU, but certain council members have developed a reputation and a history of championing certain issues, and all of us look to them. So I will use Jason Dozier. What MPUs have Jason Dozier as your council member? Okay, Jason is really great about pedestrian and cyclist safety. And so anytime issues come up about that, we usually defer to him, and anything that kind of his expertise, his knowledge on it becomes a helpful point for us. So just that's just one example, but you can probably sense, or you can actually ask your own council member, like, hey, I really care about green space. Which council member or members would be the best advocates for me on that issue? Okay. That was all I had in terms of prepared remarks on that. Should I keep going to the ombudsman and then we can take questions?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, all right, so the neighborhood ombudsman, so during the executive officer's budget presentation this year, I raised that very question. I said, there's a lot of confusion in my community about what that purpose is. And even at the last NPUF meeting, one of the neighborhood relations manager was on there, and he put in the text that this is what we can surface concerns to departments, help you find information, mediate discord, and explore options for resolving outstanding constituent and neighborhood issues. And to me, when I read that list, I'm like, well, wait a minute, how is that any different than the Office of Constituent Services? And how is that any different from ATL 311? It's not. It's not. In fact, I think it's even more confusing for citizens. Like, who do y'all go to? Like, all of a sudden, you've got that option. You've got your council member, and then, who else in the administration?